Hi, fellow whiskey lovers. Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey Wednesdays. My name's Daryl Lim, and I'm your host. Today's episode marks the end of the series showcasing the Macaloneys Distillery in Victoria, British Columbia on beautiful Vancouver Island. I've spent the majority of the fall of 2021 showcasing the two distilleries that I had the opportunity to visit this summer in August. The Shelter Point Distillery up in Campbell River, British Columbia, as well as Macaloneys Distillery in Victoria, British Columbia. If you enjoyed these live tastings along with the tours of these two distilleries, then give a thumbs up to the videos on this channel and leave your comment below. Don't forget to like and share these videos with your friends and fellow whiskey lovers. I really appreciate your support over the past year as we launched this YouTube channel and was able to house all of my whiskey videos and tutorials on this site. To date, we have 92 subscribers and I'm really close, just 8 subscribers away to reaching my goal of 100 subscribers at the end of 2021. So with 8 more subscribers left to sign up, all you need to do this week is to share this video with your friends and fellow whiskey lovers out there and get those thumbs up, likes, and subscribers to my channel. Stay tuned next episode as we'll do a wrap up of 2021 along with a little preamble to what you'll be expecting on this channel with a new format debuting for 2022. In today's episode, we're going to be tasting Macaloneys Distillery's latest release of the Invermallie. The Invermallie is a single cask limited release whiskey that contains 57.9% ABV or alcohol by volume. It is quite substantially higher than all of their previous releases or whiskeys. What's unique about this bottle for a limited release is we're going to be tasting directly from this bottle that comes from cask number 58, and it was bottle 129 out of 291 for that cask. This was bottled in October 2021, so just 2 months ago, and I had the opportunity to purchase 2 bottles from cask 58. So what I like to do for a lot of my acquisitions these days is to purchase 2 bottles of whiskey, one to drink and one to keep. So what's in the name Invermallie? Invermallie refers to the confluence between the River Mallee with the wild and remote Loch Arkaig in Lochaber, Scotland. It was named after Saint Mally, and the Gaelic spelling for Mallee would be Moluaig. What's also significant about the name Invermallie is that the River Mallee, in and around the River Mallee, was where Graham Macaloneys' ancestors have lived over the last 1,000 years. The Invermallie whiskey is a single cask limited release from Macaloneys Distillery that was carefully matured in a premium recharred red wine barrique. It's a very unique process, but also a very unique combination that I haven't yet seen before. So let's go ahead and taste the Invermallie whiskey. Today's tasting will consist of 4 areas: the color, nose, palate, and finish. So let's go ahead and analyze the color. If you put this to the light, you will see that this has a very dark, deep brown color. It's almost the shade of a leathery brown, almost like a honey brown. And yet, I'd say it's a mix between a translucent color shade as well as somewhat of a darker hue to it. I like to roll my whiskeys around my nosing glasses just to give it a little analysis. And you see here, those licks take somewhat of a longer time to drip down the side. So that gives you a bit of a hint to its finish that will be tied in on the 4th part when we talk about the finish. And now for the second area of our tasting, let's analyze the nose. Recently, a friend and a fellow whiskey lover actually showed me another way to smell a whiskey. Previously, I had said that there are two ways of smelling it by putting your nose right in the center, hence why we use these Glencairn glasses that are perfect nosing glasses for single malts. But recently, I learned that you can also smell a whiskey by simply letting it sift just past your nose this way without actually having to physically put your nose into the glass itself. So whichever way works best for you, you can go ahead and try that at this point. This whiskey has that richness that jumps out at you. On my first nosing, I can detect that richness that comes out. It's a bold, fruity flavor. I can smell almost hints of honey along with this rich maple sweetness. Again, the color almost is in line with maple syrup. But that richness there is not so much of a sweet richness, but rather there's that kind of a bold flavor that comes out from a smell perspective, a nosing perspective. So. And I'm also detecting a few nutty scents along with almost a woody oakiness to it. So again, a reflection of the fact that this is a whiskey that was matured in a premium recharred red wine barrique. So you can definitely smell that oakiness into its scent. And now for the third area of our tasting tonight, let's go ahead and analyze the palate. And for the palate, there are two distinct ways to go ahead and detect that. The first is what I call the short taste, which is by swallowing the whiskey right away without giving it an opportunity for it to coat your palate. And then we do the long taste, where we let the whiskey swirl around your palate and coat the insides of your mouth for probably 20 or 30 seconds before you inhale and then swallow it. In each of those instances, you may actually detect slightly different flavors, but that gives you a good sense of the boldness and the richness of the flavors for that whiskey. So let's go ahead and do the tastings, both short taste and the long taste. And I'll start with the short taste. Wow, that first taste there, it's, that boldness that I smelt early on in the nosing jumps right out at me. That taste is bold, it's flavorful, it's a rather sophisticated taste. You can definitely detect that oakiness in its flavor, along with that richness. The sweetness is actually not as pronounced the way a honey sweetness is, but I'd say it's more of a dark, bitter maple to it. And those of you who are maple syrup connoisseurs, then you would definitely understand what I mean by the darker shade of maple, which is almost that purity and concentration that comes through. Let's go ahead and do the long taste, and that way we'll give this chance to coat the insides of your mouth. The other thing I did notice was a bit of its spiciness jump through, which I know that could become more pronounced as we're doing that on a longer taste. So let's go ahead and do that long taste on the palate. Whew. Wow. That spiciness really jumps out at me. I probably could have swirled it in my mouth a little bit longer, but I let that kind of coat my tongue, palate, the insides of my lips right away, and that spicy flavor jumped right out at me. In fact, you're almost seeing me tear a little bit right now. I'm very surprised that with a recharred red wine barrique, you have that oakiness, but the spicy and almost the acidity is quite high for this whiskey. And it jumps out at you right away, and it gives you that feeling of the whiskey just kind of dancing off your lips and setting your tongue on fire. It is a very interesting taste, and I'm, I'm not usually typically fond of the sweeter whiskeys, but this one here has that bold sophistication to it. So I'm actually very glad that the Invermallie whiskey has this diverse flavor profile. Fourth area of our tasting this evening, we're going to be analyzing the finish. Now, the finish and the palate are very similar to one another, except that you're thinking about or you're analyzing slightly different flavors. Whenever you're testing or tasting the palate, you are noticing the flavors that are actually permeating your palate, whereas for the finish, you're sensing how long the whiskey takes to dissipate off of your palate, but also how long the whiskey lingers in your mouth for. And that usually gives it a good indication of whether it's a short finish, a medium finish, or a long finish. So let's go ahead and taste this, and just take your time with the whiskey so that you can really analyze for yourself what the finish would be. So what do you think? I love how that spicy boldness jumps right off of your lips and your tongue right away. This is definitely a whiskey I would classify as a medium to a long finish. That spiciness sits very well with you. It's actually a great whiskey to have on a cold, wintry night. So for those of you who are in harsher climates over for the winter, here in Eastern Canada, this will be a great whiskey to have for a cold wintry night, 10 degrees below zero. It'll be a great time to break out this whiskey, have a sip, have a dram, and allow that warmth and spiciness to just keep you nice and toasty. What I really enjoyed about this whiskey for the finish was that it's not oily. You'll notice sometimes that I would push the whiskeys through my teeth. And it's very hard to teach that. But I remember doing a small whiskey tasting here just a couple of days ago, and I was just coaching the people here with me in my place. And when you're pushing your whiskey through your teeth, it helps you to analyze the texture of that whiskey. So is it an oily whiskey or is it a clear whiskey? I did that a few times for this Invermallie, and I have to say it's rather clear. It doesn't have an oily texture to it at all. It does have that bold sweetness, but that bold sweetness almost converts immediately to that spiciness, and it's like a fire that lights up right across your lips. And I love that. That is definitely a great feeling to have that creates the warmth immediately, but with the medium long finish, that warmth takes quite a while to dissipate. In fact, right now I'm still feeling that warmth right here in the center of my chest. And that is a nice feeling to have when it's a cold, wintry night. Tonight's actually pretty warm where I am here in Ottawa, but it's -6 degrees outside, so this will be a whiskey that I would probably have a dram or two and then go stand outside enjoying the cool air. So we've come to the end of this week's whiskey tasting, and this marks the end of the Macaloneys Caledonian Distillery series over the last couple of episodes. If you have missed the last 3 tastings along with the tour of the distillery, then do tune in and check out those episodes right here on my channel. I would like to thank again both Graham Macaloney as well as Lee Baker, who very kindly gave me a tour of their facilities and answered my numerous questions when I was there in August. To Lee and his team at Macaloneys, thank you very much for all that you do, as well as thank you for allowing me to come to your facility to showcase what you do, as well as showcase a number of your whiskeys. For those of you who are actually also beer lovers, or you have friends who are beer lovers, then you'll be glad to know that Macaloneys Distillery not only produces whiskey products, but they have quite a well-known lineup of beers known as Trois Dogs. So for those of you who have perhaps a dual love of whiskey and beer, then Trois Dogs Brewery located right on site where Macaloneys would be also of interest for you to check out. And we have come to the end of this week's episode. This week's episode will be the last tasting for 2021. Next week, I'll be broadcasting a special episode to wrap up 2021, but also to give you a small preamble of what you'll be expecting on a reformatting of this channel for 2022. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of my viewers and subscribers for your support of my channel through 2021, and also to wish each and every one of you today a Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy and happy New Year. Until the next episode, Sláinte.